Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have a lineup of just mind-blowing experiences to share with you. Before we jump into them, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. I'm located in southwest Pennsylvania. My experience unfolds in Washington County. I live near Washington, Pennsylvania. There's always been a variety of mysterious creatures and other strange animal encounters reported in this area for quite some time now. New home construction seems to be causing these creatures to seek refuge in the surrounding woods. One of these creatures seen in the area is a large wolf-like animal. While little is known about this elusive beast, reports suggest that it possesses traits similar to that of wolves and other large animals, such as bear and mountain lion. But some people also claim that it has human-like qualities and features, which is what I feel to be the most disturbing part of its existence. I've lived in this area my whole life. When I encountered this creature, everything changed. I work as a freelance writer and researcher. It was early morning on January 1st, 2012. I'd just gotten out of bed after staying out longer than I had wanted at a New Year's Eve party. I was pretty upset for sleeping in and getting ready for the day when I heard a loud noise coming from outside. When I looked out my window, I was shocked to see this large wolf-like creature standing in the middle of my backyard. This beast didn't match anything I had ever seen before. However, it looked like the creature I had heard stories about all my life. It was easily twice the size of a normal wolf, but it seemed to have human-like features such as its eyes, hands, and feet. The mouth was slightly gaped, showing its sharp teeth. This menacing beast was just standing there, staring back at me as I watched it through my window. I didn't know how it knew I was there, and I couldn't figure out what to do about this thing being in my backyard. I stared back at it, trying to figure out just exactly what this thing was. The truth is, I was a bit excited to see it. I mean, this is an accumulation of all of my childhood fantasies and dreams about strange creatures. It was almost a surreal moment. But after standing there for quite some time, this creature finally turned around and ran off into the woods. Without a second thought, I grabbed my jacket and ran outside trying to follow it. But by the time I had got there, it disappeared into the woods. I stood in the same exact spot this creature had been standing, and I did not see anything out of the ordinary. I looked around and did not see any footprints, so it seemed necessary that I walk over to where this creature went into the woods. As I approached the edge of the woods, I was shocked by a sudden loud howl. I was now scared, and I felt like I had pushed it too far. I started to slowly work my way towards home, hoping that this creature would just leave me alone. But as soon as I left the woods, it let out a loud growl and lunged out of the thick cover. I turned 180 degrees from this beast and ran for my life. I reached my house and closed the back door just behind me. But this monster was right there as it smashed into the door, shattering glass and sending splinters of wood flying through the air. It didn't get through the door, though, thank God. It stood steadily and staying right in place. I was now in the kitchen, and I grabbed a knife just in case it found its way inside. But by the time I turned to look, it was now gone. It was as if it had vanished in thin air. I was left standing, wondering what to do next, so I called the police and reported this encounter. Over the next few hours, there was a search for the beast, but it was never found. At least that's what the authorities told me. They told me that there was nothing to worry about, and the next day a crew of some sort showed up with cameras and what looked like detectors. However, I have no idea who they were and what they were doing. For me, this creature will always remain a mystery, a sign of something more out there in the world. It's as if I got a glimpse of what could be lurking in the shadows, waiting for their next chance to strike. That reminder is enough to keep me on my toes for the rest of my life. As terrifying as it was, I am actually grateful for the encounter because it validated a lot of my life's interests. Alright guys, I don't know about you, but I would not be so quick to throw my jacket on, run to my backyard, look around at the edge of the woods for a Dogman that was just standing in my backyard. More than likely, I would probably stand inside with my phone, hoping to catch a photo of this thing, and probably wait a half hour to an hour just to make sure this thing was gone. Anyway, today's second encounter is from a gentleman out of Brazil with of Mexican descent, and it is quite strange, and I think you guys will like it. This experience I'm going to tell you is something old. It has been in my family for a long time, and it really happened. It was passed down from generation to generation, from father to son, and it comes from my grandfather's grandfather's time, which happened to be the late 1800s. We do not comment on this story outside of the family, as many do not believe it, but what matters is that it is a true fact that was recorded in the generations of my family, and that will also be passed down to my grandchildren and their grandchildren. From what was passed on to me by my father and grandfather, the memories come from a village, where the nearest town was Acasingo. In this village lived my great-grandfather and his family. His family was poor and without resources, like most people of the region, and they basically lived off the land. They had a small farm where there was a vegetable plantation and some animals such as chicken, cow, and goat. According to my granddad, they had a peaceful and happy life, but without luxury. Everything began to change on a certain night. Everyone in the village saw a very strong light across the sky, which appeared to fall into the woods of a nearby forest. Of course, everyone was startled when they saw this light tear through the sky at high speed and apparently fall in a nearby location. Now, remember, there were no planes at this time, so I can imagine the astonishment that the people of the village had on their face. Seeing that strange fact, everyone got together and decided to look into the woods for what could have fallen. The next day, several men gathered, including my great-grandfather, and went into the direction where the strange light appeared to have fallen, which was a nearby forest. Everyone left and followed the trails in the region and entered the forest to look for something different. However, it was of no use because even searching the large area, they found nothing unusual, and they returned to the village afterward, where they told the others that there was nothing there in the forest. So the people were calmer with the news, but at the same time curious about what that strange light could have been. After the scare, everything remained calm in the village, as it was always, until one day, as the people involved said a farmer who lived nearby went out to look for a steer that had strayed from the rest of the herd and had not returned home. The farmer's family then worried, asked the neighbors for help to look for him, as it was already dark and he had not returned. Faced with the request for help, some of the neighbors got together and left with their lamps and torches in search of their missing friend. They searched for many hours in the nearby woods and found nothing. The next day they went out again to search, only this time they had a sad surprise. They found the farmer lying in the woods dead, but in a strange way. His body had been torn apart from the neck to the waist. There was no internal organs. It was as if something or someone had murdered him, cut his body open, and removed all the organs. That at the time was a scandal, as there was no cases of murder in the region, as everyone was known. The most that happened was a few thefts of chicken and clothes on the clothesline, nothing more than that. So the police force of the nearest city was called, which did a sweep of the place and some investigation, but to no conclusion was reached because, with the resources being so poor at the time, they did not even identify the type of weapon or object that could have killed the man. Once the burial was done, the mystery remained in the air, and the fear hovered over the villagers, but life continued at its pace. A few weeks after this intriguing fact, another resident mysteriously disappeared. They said he was going to a nearby waterfall. He also did not return home at dark. In the same way as before, but with more fear and caution, the group went out to search, and nothing was found during the night either. The next day the search continued, and at a certain distance after the waterfall, the resident's body was also found, dead, and this time all torn to pieces, as if the beast had attacked him. And, as before, there were no internal organs in his body either. This fact generated general panic in the village, as he was already the second person to die brutally in the mysterious region. Something that had never happened. Again, the police force was called, which, in the same way as before, carried out an investigation and interrogations, but nothing was resolved, saying that maybe it was some kind of wild animal that had killed the resident, devouring his internal organs. No one believed this, as it was not possible that the same animal had killed both people in a similar way, and also completely devoured the internal organs of both. And the rest of the bodies, why weren't they devoured as well? No animal would do that. Either it would devour everything, or not just the internal organs. Another week later, a young man disappeared in the same way. He had said that he was going fishing nearby, and even with his parents' warning of the existent danger, he had not returned. Like the others, his body was also found on the banks of the river, but decapitated with a torn chest and no internal organs. The panic that already existed in this place from this new murder turned in general hysteria. Everyone was clamoring for justice and a solution to the problem. In the village, there was a lady, half gypsy, half seer, who said that this was not the work of a man nor animal, but the work of something the people did not know. This news passed from villager to villager, and everyone was more terrified than before, and did not know what to do. Until one day, an older resident decided to create a group of men to hunt this animal or whatever was responsible for these murders. So a group of 5 men decided to go and sweep the forest. Afraid that if it was something supernatural, they asked the lady who was clairvoyant to accompany them, imagining that with her in the group, they would have more protection due to her gift of clairvoyancy. To accompany the lady, her granddaughter also decided to go along with her. So the next morning, the 5 men left, all armed with revolvers and rifles. the lady who was a seer and her granddaughter in search of what would be responsible for these crimes. According to the experience, they walked for almost a whole day searching the forest in search of clues until they found strange footprints, which, according to what they said, were not that of a man nor any known animal. That scared them even more, but they continued to look. What came next was something terrifying, leaving some people mentally disturbed. After a few kilometers from the last location, everyone stopped in the clearing to rest and eat a snack that they had brought along. They were all exhausted and almost gave the search up because they thought they would find nothing. According to one of the survivors, it was at this time that they heard a noise in the woods, as if something was approaching. Everyone was startled, and the men readied their weapons, not knowing what this creature could be. That's when something started running around them in a circle in the woods. And at high speed, everyone saw the leaves of the trees and plants moving and the noise of something moving quickly around them. But no one saw what it was. At a moment, a tall creature emerged from the forest at high speed. Its body seemed to be covered in scales, grayish in color, with huge teeth and sharp claws on its hands. It seemed to have reddish eyes, and this creature jumped and went down into the men's group, turning quickly and very quickly killing the men in the group. All 5 brutally exterminated, their bodies torn apart. 2 were decapitated. After the extermination of the men, the creature let out a roar and headed toward the 2 women who were lying on the ground in a state of shock. When they thought it would be their end, they were startled when the creature looked at them, as if examining them from head to toe, stopping and then moving away at high speed into the woods and then disappearing. The lady, who was a seer, and her granddaughter then, after recovering a little from the shock, returned to the village, telling the villagers the details of what happened. Even they could not believe what happened. Asked what the creature was, and she said, El Diablo. But as the creature only killed men and spared women, it was called to local people the Hunter of Men, or the El Cazador de Hambre. After the massacre, the police sent a full force into the village. The forest was searched throughout the region, but nothing else was found. 2 weeks later, another resident was found dead in the same way. A month after this last case, a couple was traveling along the road to the city of Ocosingo when they were attacked by this creature. The woman said at one point, when the surrounding forest was at the thickest, the creature sprung up and leaped into the wagon and hurled the husband to the ground, leaping on him and tearing him apart with the claws. Then, in the same way as before, the creature approached the woman, examined her from top to bottom, and did nothing against her, moving away from that area at high speed. After this last murder, nothing more happened, but also nothing was found or mystery solved. Everyone was terrified and no longer left the house alone. And the mystery remained forever. My granddad said that his grandfather guaranteed that everything was true because he himself saw the bodies of the dead men when they arrived in the village, and it was a horrible thing. Although the last death, nothing more happened, there were many doubts in everyone in the village. What was it? Where did it come from? What did they want? Why did it only kill men? And why did he kill them? Could it have been something to do with the mysterious light seen long ago, before the events? And perhaps most intriguing, where did the creature go? And would it ever return? Even if in another location, as was the mystery that my grandfather's grandfather witnessed in his life, it was also striking and shocking that he told his grandson, who passed it on to his descendants, reaching me which is why I'm sharing it now. For those of you who do not believe, be at peace. And when you know that something strange is happening in some forest, go there to check what it could be in person. But remember that this could be your last trip. One thing I learned from my father and grandfather, as well as my ancestors, never doubt what can exist in this universe, however incredible and extraordinary it may seem, because one day you may witness something that will change your life forever. You know, I really like how he ended that by, really saying, hey, if you don't believe this, go out in the woods and look for yourself. But remember, it may be your last time. And, just because we don't see what's in the woods doesn't mean there is not anything in there. And judging on all of the strange things that seem to be going on, like the drying of the Euphrates, strange disappearances, these creatures being seen more and more, I think we may be coming to that level where there may not be turning back for us. And that's why I fight and say, our government needs to share this. They need to say what happened in Dulce. They need to tell us, guys, there are creatures out there. There are portals. There are strange things going on. But then again, how would they look to the rest of the world? So maybe, just maybe, all of their soft disclosures are coming through Hollywood. I mean, it makes sense. The government uses the media for everything else. Why not with a soft disclosure? If you guys think about it, all of these experiences that we hear nowadays that are older resemble these creatures that are in these movies that are, coming out. Dog Soldiers, Descent. Need I say more? Now, let's jump into a couple of subscriber encounters. Jeff, this incident was relayed to me by a former coworker, and I believe his experience for no other reason than how emotional he was during telling it. So Frank, we'll call him, and his buddy were going to spend a weekend camping and deer hunting. This occurred in northwest Arkansas in Boone County, near the small town of Compton. They took a country road, I don't recall the road number, off of Highway 7 to their camping site that they had used before. It was a flat clearing open for probably 20 to 30 feet, surrounded by heavy forest, around 100 yards off the country. To the east, through the woods, at about 70 yards, the ground drops off rather steeply for about 50 yards. Downhill to a pretty wide and deep creek, they made camp that Friday evening, each having his own tent and pretty much just hanging out there. Being that it was late in the day and November, it was getting pretty dark quick. The evening would prove uneventful. The next morning, they were up and out before the sun hunting. They returned to camp a little before sunset, neither bagging a deer nor starting to make dinner. Well after dark, they could hear something in the creek below them moving around, and in a few minutes could hear something walking through the woods toward their camp, stopping just outside of the campfire light. Now, how these things know how to judge, that is beyond me, but they seem on a regular basis. Anyway, whatever this was doesn't make another sound for 15 minutes, and then starts to circle the camp with brief stops here and there. On the second time around, Frank calls out, "Who's there?" No answer. "We're armed," Still no answer. Now, Frank was well armed with a 30-06 and his buddy had a 12 gauge with slugs. That he had already jacked out and replaced with double-aught buck. Probably because it was so dark. So this thing starts moving again and Frank yells out, "You want to get shot? 'Cause this is how you're going to get shot. Nothing. This is your final warning." It started walking again and, as usual, stopped a short ways around. This time sounding closer. Frank took note of where he thought it had stopped and about how high up the chest of a man would be and sent a round firing. He knew he had hit it. It made the same thump as a deer would. But this was followed by a horrible, ear-piercing scream and yelling as it ran through the woods down to the creek, where they could hear it thrashing and splashing. Then they could hear it heading up the hill on the opposite side of the creek. At this point, they hauled back to the truck and left. I'm not sure they ever went back for their gear, but both were terribly shaken over the incident. Frank's friend refuses to talk about it at all. And to this day, Frank isn't sure what he shot. He kept telling me, "I don't know how a person could take a hit like that and run off." To which I replied, to lighten his mood, "What if it wasn't a man and something much larger? You may have hit it in the wiener." Well, that's my buddy Frank's story. All right, and tonight's second subscriber experience, we're just going to refer to this subscriber as John, no last name. And he is out of Tennessee. So here goes. It was a Friday night at around 10:30. I was off for the weekend and my wife and kid were in bed. I was up watching Yellowstone on TV, a man of my own heart right there, with our old dog laying beside me, late 2022 winter. I bought a sixer, a Miller, on the way home. I paused the TV to get my third beer and finish the episode and go to bed. On my way back to the living room recliner, I saw my dog right up against the wall, hair standing up and tail stiff, growling low. On the other side of the wall was a lean-to shed, 4x10, with my wellhouse, plumbing, and filters, and has a door with a latch but no lock. I could hear something going on out there, and I thought it was people. I've never seen or heard any cryptid other than Bigfoot, which most people know by name. I grabbed my 9mm SIG, M18 handgun, and a flashlight and went outside. It was weird. The dog would not go at all. I eased over and turned the light on, and sticking out the side of the shed was an ass end of a dog. Somewhat bushy tail and hind legs. And at the time, it really did not register in my mind the size. I kind of sighed with relief that it wasn't a thief and yelled, "Hey, get out of here." This animal backed up and looked over at me from a side view. I was totally in shock. I'd never in my life felt fear like this. When it looked at me at first, its eyes were round and its ears perked up, like it was just surprised as I was, but that did not last long at all. It was within 20 feet of this animal, and it looked all wrong. This thing's eyes were squinted, ears laid back, and started to show its teeth. It did a growl, and I've heard people say they feel it, but I can't say I did. My adrenaline and mind racing. I don't know if anything would have gotten to me. I don't remember smelling anything either. Those eyes looked like they were yellow reflectors, and it was a salt and pepper color, with the black being darker than the nighttime, but the face had some brown and dark reddish streaks like a Doberman. The head, I guess, looked like a wolf, but supersized. The eyes were so far apart, like it almost had to turn to look at something. The snout was oversized, just like its head. At first, I was looking at it from its side. The shoulders were higher than the hips. I was thinking I didn't want to shoot. I didn't want to shoot and was hoping that it would just turn and go away, but it didn't. And when it lifted its front limbs to turn towards me, it was when I saw that it had hands and not paws. These hands were long and the claws looked more like talons. I really don't know how long, maybe 3.5 inches. This animal turned towards me and I really got a good look at its shoulders. It wasn't muscular like a bodybuilder, but it was big like a burly lumberjack. I started backing up, hoping that this thing would just go away, but it was locked on me and either trying to intimidate or attack me. I don't know, but when it was growling, showing its aggression, and started moving toward me, I made a choice. I dropped the flashlight in my left hand and used the light on my handgun pointed and just started shooting as fast as I thought I could hit. I know I was hitting this creature. It made an awful scream, rolled over backward, and jumped the driveway and was gone. That was my first ever experience with these creatures. They are still around, and even the one I shot had been seen. Brother, I'm going to share a little bit about... I'm just a normal guy, nothing special at all, but this stuff is wild and I could use some advice. I know you say you're not an expert, and no one is, but you're as close as it gets. Thank you for that, but I am no expert. I don't know what kind of advice you want, my friend, but I can tell you, I would install some lights surrounding your home area, maybe a couple of motion activated lights kind of spotted on that area where it was at your well house. I know it was cold out, winter obviously, and you do live in Tennessee, so it's still chilly. Maybe it was looking for a place to stay warm. Because it's strange, it's not going to be able to get into your house that way, obviously, but it was still there for a reason, my best bet or best advice would be put some motion activated lights up, have a bigger gun ready, a shotgun with some double-aught buck and slugs alternating just in case you need to get to it quick. You shot this thing. It may want revenge someday. So, and try not to go out at night. I mean, that's the best advice I got. I am no expert. Be safe, man. You got a kid, you got a wife. Don't play hero. But keep an eye on your child, especially as he grows older. This thing is not afraid of your home. It's not afraid of coming into your yard, which is scary. So I hope that helps, John. If not, I'm going to reach out to you anyway and send you an email because I'd like to talk to you a little bit. Well, there you have it, folks. Today's upload with just some absolutely mind-blowing experiences. I hope you enjoyed them all as much as I enjoyed sharing them with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and honestly, what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free. Simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, the most precious gift we can be given. Our pets, the greatest alarm system ever. Family and friends, the people we love and care about.
Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions. Never stop searching for the truth. God bless.